Hello, this is Defacto Review with me, Khurelsukh Ukhnaa. We are broadcasting from Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia. We share with you our opinions about three important events of last week happened political, economic, and social life of Mongolia. The topics for today are food safety. President Khurelsukh Ukhnaa addresses the issue at the parliament plenary sessions. Second, housing problem, outlook and solutions. Third topic is exploration licenses are granted finally. Now about the first topic. This is about food safety. There are food insecurity risks in Mongolia. We need to take serious actions to mitigate them. There is a UN report about that issue. And also President Khurelsukh addressed the food security issues at Khural, our parliament plenary sessions on May 13th. There are also global challenges, the geopolitical tensions, COVID-19, transport crisis, unemployment, poverty, etc. Many countries face these issues. Mongolia is not an exception. The most pressing issues in Mongolia. First, it's rising food prices. In 2021, there is a 20% price increase in Mongolia, and it caused 15% inflation. It means also 3 in 4 poor families are negatively affected by the increased food price. Prices go up because lockdown, quarantine, and vulnerable food supply chain. That means high transportation costs, insufficient vehicles, poor road infrastructure affecting delay of goods. Second issue is food shortage and food dependence. Why? 65% of Mongolians suffer from food insecurity or not sufficient food. According to the particular report of the state about food safety control system and budget expenses. According to this report, in 2020, several supplies for several products are increased for meat, potatoes, vegetables, milk. But there are several products supplies decreased: eggs, fruits, legumes. Overall supply of food was low, except meat in Mongolia. Mongolia is reliant on imports from abroad for 16 types of foods: rice, vegetable oil, fish, poultry meat, fruits, berries, butter, eggs, dairy products, vegetables, bakery, sugar, each to a certain degree. Supplies of some of them, for example, fruits, stopped due to closure of borders and transport delay. And inadequate storage facilities. The next one, the challenge is limited standard logistical resources. Third challenge is inadequate storage facilities. The fourth would be limited standard logistical resources in Mongolia. For example, there is no united system for registration and monitoring at each stage of food supply chain. Also, professional misconduct, poor monitoring system, causing lack of access to healthy food. Bio and food labs numbers are increased, but they lack of quality. The main office, specialized agency, labs, for example, half of this equipment of this lab are made in the last century. There are several other issues, of course, other issues hindering the food safety in the country. There are extreme weather, natural hazards, pests, and diseases. So how to solve the issues? The President recommends two things. The government urgently submits a national food security program to the Parliament for discussions. Second, he recommended launching a national food supply and security movement. He called the Mongolian people to meet needs for 19 main products over the next 5 years. Meat products, cabbage, beets, onions, garlic, flour, bakery products, greenhouse vegetable, eggs, butter, salt, chicken, vegetable oils. Also, to fully meet the domestic demand and then export foods, carry out the related legal reforms for that. Also, to develop agricultural clusters, establish industrial complexes, to establish forest zones, intensive agriculture and animal husbandry. To create permanent strategic wheat reserve, increase the capacity of accredited laboratories, to improve the strategy for combating and preventing infectious animal disease and become a disease-free country in the next 5 years. To provide reliable sources of water, irrigation, energy, stream, and heating. To increase productivity by training and create stable working environment. He also suggested to expand and increase the size of arable lands, reduce soil degradation, and alternate technical and technological innovations for crop rotation. To establish agroforestry, develop seeding and breeding centers, and fruits and berry farms within the framework of billions of trees national movement. Use and protect plant genetic resources, create local seed reserves, and also develop seed farming to establish an efficient system of tax and insurance based on market principles, provide soft loans, financing and incentives for working capital, and long-term investment, increase the use of private investment. Out of what he is proposed, I find the final provision is the most important. Provisions about business inducive environment. That's the most important thing and missing one in the country today. As also we need the free market principles as free price, free and fair competition are the must. Cooperative is the key among herders and farmers. Our second topic is housing problems, mostly about Ulaanbaatar, in its outlook and solutions. Let's have some picture on current situation of housing in Ulaanbaatar city. Ulaanbaatar city was planned for 500,000 residents originally, but now we have 1.6 million, or 3 times more population. And we have 450,000 households in Ulaanbaatar city, out of which 220,000 live in Ger district or without proper infrastructure. The population grows, according to the mayor of the city, grows by 35,000 a year from inside, or natural growth, but 40,000 mechanically a year at the cost of migration, that means from countryside. So since 2011, only 1,500 households a year got housing or apartments. Now the current governor is planning to make it into 6,500 a year. How? First, making infrastructure for 120,000 households of that above mentioned 250,000, because these people can have access to infrastructure if we build it there, technically possible. There are, for example, in Sukhpata district 9th Horo, the 80 households land with fence were made into 700 apartments, high-rise. So in that way, decentralizing the city into 6 centers For all these projects, they need 270 billion Mongolian tugriks for this infrastructure, or it's around 90 million US dollar. Still, it will take some 30 years with that speed for Riding-Novgorod district in Ulaanbaatar city. According to the mayor of Ulaanbaatar city, that estimation counts. The second way is to continue the state-subsidized mortgage loan. There is an affordable housing program, has been helping citizens acquire mortgages since 2013, initiated by the Bank of Mongolia. Initially, the Bank of Mongolia extended loans 4% per annum to 10 commercial banks. Those commercial banks lend to the citizens the loan at 8% per annum for 20 years. It is all covering for the apartments up to 80 square meter size. The remaining 4% was subsidized from the budget. During COVID-19, the government paused payments for 2 years. That's why banks have now limited sources, as payment is not coming. More than that, during the COVID, the government have lowered that 8% to 6%, making early borrowers frustrated. Overall, since 2013, there are 97,000 mortgage borrowers got a loan for 4.6 trillion MNT. Out of them, only 72,000 are under this program. Their total loan is 3.4 trillion MNT. This year, they plan to borrow to 10,000 people for 700 billion MNT. However, it goes very slow due to many reasons. Only 2,000 loans are released so far. Plus, housing prices goes up in Mongolia, 20% for only 2021. Then the issue of Mongolian MIC, or Mongolian Hypothec Corporation, comes out now. MIC is actually instrument, right instrument that converts this short-term loan into longer term. In other words, they are converting the loans from money market to capital market. It's a required instrument, and then they how do they do it? Is they are buying mortgages, loans from the commercial banks, then issue bonds to international market. The raised money help extending new loans. But the problem with MIC is it was created initially by 10 commercial banks. Each had 10%. But somehow, eventually, as of today, 70% of this MIC, the Mongolian Hypothec Corporation, now belongs to the one person, through or directly or indirectly. That person is the owner of TDB, Trade and Development Bank of Mongolia. So thus it became a monopoly. It has also made a risk fund rather high and make more and more profit by making its fee higher, according to the government of Mongolia. So what are the solutions? Need to create another company like MIC to compete with it, and so that there is no monopoly and fair competition. It could be pension fund or any other fund. Also, grant mortgages on the first come, first serve basis, provided both companies meet the requirements. No more postponing the payment of the loan. These are three things we should do in order to have housing program as possible, successful as possible. Our third topic is the exploration licenses. The mining sector accounts for 1/4 of GDP, 3/4 of foreign investment, and 95% of Mongolian export. They are mostly coal, copper, iron ore, and other metals. Yet, last few years, we have been very slow due to global pandemic and closure of borders. To develop this sector, there is a need to invest in and support the exploration sector, says Bat Nairamdal, the Deputy Minister of Mining and Heavy Industry. Mongolia was giving grants since the law adopted in 1997, Mineral Law of Mongolia. And there were different ways of granting licenses. At first, licenses were issued on basis of a business application. In 2004, about 2,000 licenses were already issued, covering 20% of the territory. But from 2010-2014, licenses were banned due to a lot controversies and chaoses. It stalled foreign investment, and mining sector suffered. Since 2017, licenses were granted, but around only 100 a year. In 2019, for example, only 110 licenses were issued. Today, policy is changing. Individuals and businesses hold 896 exploration licenses, covering 3% of the territory, and 1,700 production licenses, covering only 1% of the territory. But Nairamdal said that more exploration permits should be issued, and the research should begin first. They started this year in 2022. And they have changed the rule for tender. It plans to issue around 400 licenses per year through the new selection procedure. Ministry is digitalizing that process. Licensing process will be open and transparent to all. Thus, they will reduce corruption and bribery. There is a need to significantly increase the exploration budget. Our ministry receives the least budget from other ministries, but generates the largest amount of revenue. Mongolia needs a lot of money to develop this process. According to Mr. Bat Iredui, the head of United Board of Mongolian Geology Unions, it's a good to have more exploration licenses granted. So it will give a chance to know what minerals are where and plan ahead economic development of the country. In fact, geological exploration must be 20 years ahead of mining industry for better planning of material, financial, and human resources. We need a long-term, stable, legal environment. The National Wealth Fund law, expected to be approved this year, will be a good base for addressing all the issues we are facing today in terms of granting the exploration licenses. There are several issues Mongolian geology is facing. First of all, there is a growing resistance from local people even for exploration licenses, let alone the production license. That means there is not properly consideration of the demand of local people and their interests. Through the royalty system and other measures, the local people's herdsmen's interests are to be taken properly into consideration. There is also some corruption issues which, though successfully being addressed by this government. So the most important issue is to have a support of local peoples for geological exploration of minerals. This is the end of our weekly de facto review. Thank you very much for watching us, and see you next week.